Welcome to Preaching That Matters, a place you can find apostolic Pentecostal preaching, a place where all generations can be fed with the Word of God. We hope you enjoy.
If you need any more note paper, I've got a little bit more left. Okay. As I said, I never failed to be moved by that film. Relationships probably is one of the most important attributes of a real Christian. Not to mention a Sunday school teacher. There's probably nothing in our life that happens to us that's any more important than relationships. And actually, in a way, that's, in a very simplistic manner of speaking, that's what teaching is all about. Brother Wallace and I were talking sometime back, and I forgot the incident. It must have been a tragic thing. But he and I were both so fortunate to be reared by Pentecostal parents. Now, my father was not. He is now, but he was not when I was a child. But my mother and my grandmother was. And almost alongside that, maybe not totally as important, but certainly a very big plus, was the fact that both of us had parents who cared. And I told my husband, I said, you know, really, you couldn't put a dollar sign on that experience. My mother always expected the most out of me. She thought I could do things. And as a result, I was able to do much more than I ever thought I could do. And Mother herself was an achiever. She was a tremendous achiever. I lost her 3 years ago. It bothers me that you folks are still standing. Here's my coat off. Move that off. Somebody take this chair. Hand that back a little bit later. Can you lift that chair across? Okay? If you're comfortable standing, fine. Okay, fine. Okay. But caring. I spoke to the young girl that I was sitting by in this morning's session, and she and I are friends from way back, and we have a mutual friend. And this friend has had a lot of trauma in her life. And I spoke to my friend, and I said Alice would have loved, she would have related to this film. But you meet these people along in life that I can't think of any handicap greater than to become, to be in a group that does not accept you. I can't think of anything. It's totally devastating. Did you notice the way his IQ dropped? And from 83, that's pretty low. 90 is low normal. And 83 is pretty low, and it was 106. What, second grade, third grade, somewhere along there? 106, that's good, that's high. And it just dropped. And the thing about it was, nobody cared whether he achieved or didn't achieve. And I think that in Pentecost, in a way, we have something tremendous going. Now, one of the nicest things that I've enjoyed doing more than anything that I've done in a long, long time, we'll get to Sunday school in a minute, but I'm always moved by that film. And I've seen it 4 or 5 times, but it never fails to affect me. But last year in January, you sort of make a few plans and set a few goals, make a few resolutions in January. And I had, for years and years and years, I had wanted to write a book. Now, I wrote this one years and years ago, and if you don't have a copy, I brought some along, and it's still the norm, one of the most basic books we have in teaching, and it's still a lot of practical advice, so if you don't have this book, you might want to get it. I had written that one, but to me, that was how shall I say it, a trade book, but I wanted to write a book. And so quite by accident, Brother Ralph Cook came to the general board meetings in January, and his son, Paul Cook, Brother Paul Cook, was going on the mission field on a long tour, and they have young teenage children. And so they asked Brother Ralph Cook and his wife, the grandma and grandpa, to stay with their children in St. Louis while they were overseas. And when I found that out, I said, "Oh, Brother Cook, I'm going to write your story while you're here." And so I did. I did a week's interviews. I had about 7 90-minute tapes and asked him all about himself, and then worked real hard on it all year. And just before General Conference, we were able to get it out. We had it for General Conference. And I brought along about a dozen of them with his little shaky signature. They're the only, I doubt we'll get any more signed copies, because he's in the Detroit hospital now, and he's just very, very bad. He's lost 35 pounds since conference, and he was thin then, while he was at the conference. It was the greatest experience for him. He seemed so thrilled and so pleased, and he was so cooperative, and he was very, very alert, and he wanted to get down what God had done for him in his life. And Brother Paul told me the other day, said, "See, Wallace, it was just one of those shining things that happens." But, I was twice blessed by getting to share his life and then getting to put it together in story form. And as I said, I brought 6 or 8 copies. I asked Brother Wallace to pack a dozen, but I don't think there was room in my box for a dozen. But he was wanting to share what had happened to him. But these little nobodies, and in our circles, Brother Wallace and I have been in the headquarters work so long, until almost around the world I know somebody everywhere. I know somebody. I know several of you have come and spoken, and I remember your faces. I don't always remember your names. But if I was stuck in Houston, I'd make it. I'd make it, because I've got friends who care, and I'd find some help. But these people that are not even accepted by their own intimate family group, they're not a part of any church group, and they don't really find their needs met in the school system. And, of course, the study they referred to there of the babies who died, I read that study. It was by Renee Spitz. If you notice, that film was produced by Brigham Young University. Well, Renee Spitz did this study on orphans in the early 40s, and it was part of some studies that I did in the early childhood education field. And these babies just died. Well, they were well cared for by nurses, and they had 2 groups, because it sounds, lab work is always cruel, but they were abandoned. They had 2 groups, and one group was cared for by substitute mothers, just, unlearned, but they knew how to love them and pick them up and rock them and that. The other group was cared for by professional nurses, and the ones by professional nurses sickened and died before they were a year old. And if not, then they were so damaged from the experience until they never flourished. A similar thing they noticed in a New York foundling home back in the 1800s. The babies used to be abandoned and left at the door. Now then they're terminated before they're ever delivered normal. And of course, what was it, 7 million that we killed last year in this country? And we talk about the Holocaust in Germany. But this uncaring thing, this not caring. But in Pentecost, many of us are related, and we are like sisters. I know Sister Rigdon and I were shopping out the other day, and this woman that was waiting on us insisted that we must be sisters, and I said, well, of course we are. But of course we're not even distant kin. She was reared up in Wisconsin, and I'm from Tennessee. But there is a kinship. But there is a threat in that. Now, I don't know whether you'll understand what I'm saying or not, and I almost wish you'd turn the tape recorder off. But we have this almost, I guess vicious is much too strong a word. Malicious is not the word. Maybe uncaring, unfeeling It's something within us that if anybody veers just the slightest veering from what we consider the way, then immediately we label them, well, they're not in the church. And once you get that label, friends, you've had it. You've had it. I'm thinking of another friend that this friend of mine and I share, a little girl named Joy. And I know that other friends of mine know about her, and I keep in touch with her, and I write to her. In fact, I hope to see her while I'm here. And the first question they always bring up, but is she in the church? The kid has never known anything. If she's in anybody's church, she belongs to us. This is the only church she has ever gone to. Good, bad, or indifferent, saint or sinner, what does she identify with except this church? Now, I know we must maintain our holiness standards, and I'm a firm believer in that. But we've got to reach out and help people, and save people, and care for people. They are people. They are not ciphers in the snow. They are human beings. And we've got to open our hearts. Otherwise, we can learn every single method. We can be proficient with puppets. We can decorate to the limit. And we can spend thousands of dollars on buildings. But if we ever lose that caring thing, we have had it. Because our churches will become beautiful mausoleums, as the denominational churches have become. They have built beautiful mausoleums, and they're boarded up in all the major cities of the USA, and it's worse in Europe. Church after church, fantastic, big, beautiful churches, with the doors boarded up. And they weren't boarded up because they didn't know the latest teaching methods. They were boarded up because somehow they had lost that first love. And that is one thing. That's not in my notes. I did not plan to say this. I did not plan to hit on this. But let me tell you one little way. You say, with kindergarten children, how are you going to know, Sister Wallace, that they feel this way? Okay, here's one little trick you can use. Make you a list of all your children. It's right on the back of your notes. Amy, Benny, Christy, Donna, Evan, Frank, all your children. List them right down the big long list. Okay, you go back. Amy, you just do this in your spare time, between sinners, between telling the story, just when you have a chance. Hey, Amy, who's your best friend? Sister Wallace, Christy's my best friend. Okay. Benny, who's your best friend? Sister Wallace, Frank's my best friend. And you go down your list, and you get every child's best friend. All right, now, you take that list home, and you look at it carefully, and you see which child's name is totally left off, and he is no one's best friend. Now, see, if those teachers had done that, they would have located this kid. See, he's the child that didn't give them any trouble. He didn't give them some trouble, they'd have noticed him. And he'd have got a certain kind of feedback from negative response. It would have been negative reaction that he got. But he would have enjoyed that, and it would give him something to fight against. But to be totally ignored and just, that's devastating. It's totally devastating to a person. And when you find the little Cliff Evans, who is left out totally of your list, then you become his best friend. Yes. And you reach out and hug him every Sunday. And you can't hug all 25 of them every Sunday, but it would be very, very good if you would. I well remember a respected teacher in our midst, in another city far from here, a preacher's wife no less, and a mother. But she was teaching kindergarten. And I went down to observe. They had done some work, and it was supposed to be a real good model setup now, and they had everything so-so. The housekeeping corner was here, and the book center was there, and the block center was here, and all the props were there. But at the end of every session, she stood there and out, out, out. Well, look, honey, I don't care if you had the whole ball game set up. If you tell them goodbye like that, forget it. What she really thought about him was very, very evident.
That's right.
And you know, it's so sad because later that same person suffered a great deal of rejection. And she was a widow and she suffered a great deal of rejection herself. But it's that old law, the sowing and the reaping. It just comes home to me. It just takes so little to turn around and tell somebody you love them and you appreciate them. Why don't you do that right now? Somebody leave the lights back there. Now, we got multimedia this morning. This one's going to be on this one. See it, will not? There's the light switch. You think y'all gonna be able to hear this cassette? Maybe it'd be better to put it back there in sort of the middle room.
His days observing adults, pretending and imagining what he will be like when he is big. The adult watches the child, fascinated by cuteness, amazed at each new sign of growth, drawn in search of clues to all of the drama and meaning in life. The adult sees all the beauty and pain of life in the eyes of the child. Humanity's strengths and weaknesses are already evident in the child's many facets. The child is loving, responsive to the caresses and tenderness received. The child is selfish, urgently needing to clutch a treasured possession or person. The child is dependent, needing others in order to survive, let alone flourish. The child is also independent, seeing the world from his own unique vantage point, often desperate to do it myself. Activity marks the child's days. Wiggles and motion seem constant, interspersed with times of quiet reflection and rest. A world made for giants confronts the child with a myriad of things he's not capable of doing. But every day he is testing new skills and improving on old ones, driven by a determination to succeed. The child is aggressive and he is shy. The child is confident as well as hesitant. At every stage of life he is, as we are, a bundle of contradictions. But whatever the child may be, he is definitely not just a miniature adult. He is not just a person with potential whose life is in the future, nor is he simply a reflection of his environment, a carbon copy of parents or others who surround him. The child is unique, a special person made by God. child acts on his world, making things happen that would never have been if not for him. The child is a complex, total personality with a wide range of interests, emotions, and characteristics.
The child doesn't like to think about
The child is curious, constantly and efficiently exploring. He looks, he touches, he smells and listens, and even tastes in order to acquire skills and information. The child efficiently uses all 5 senses to think accurately in first-hand experiences. However, the accuracy of the child's thinking is dramatically reduced whenever the child becomes merely a spectator. Because the child depends on direct experiences, he is limited to thinking concretely and literally, not abstractly or symbolically. The child's view of the world is also restricted, for he can only imagine something the way he has experienced it. Even when dealing with physical first-hand experiences, the child's thinking hits a snag when confronted with more than one idea at a time. For example, a child believes that the amount of water changes when it is poured from one glass to another of different shape. The child can see that nothing has been added or taken away, but the change in appearance distorts his ability to make an accurate comparison. The child brings these same mental characteristics to the task of learning about God and Jesus and Christian truth. Listen to 3 typical 5-year-olds tell how they think about some important concepts. What do you think God is like?
I can see.
He's big?
Uh-huh.
What else?
He has curly hair.
Ted describes God in physical terms because a young child can only think concretely. This same characteristic is evident in children's ideas about prayer. What is prayer?
Prayer is when you say, "Thank you for the world,"
Who do you say that to when you pray?
to our mommies and our daddies.
The posture of prayer, the words of prayer, the people who are in the room during prayer, these dominate children's thinking about prayer because they are the things that can be seen and heard. The meaning and purpose of prayer is abstract, and thus not part of the child's thoughts. Can you tell me about Jesus? Tell me something that you're glad that Jesus did.
No, he isn't.
Daddy has no idea what risen means. All young children often use words without knowing the meaning. The child accepts what he hears and repeats it with little concerns for understanding. Does God hear your prayers?
But we can't see God
Why can't we see God?
because he lives up in heaven, but he can see us.
Elena believes she can't see God only because he's far removed in heaven. She has no idea about God's spiritual nature. She could correctly say we can't see God, but she was merely repeating something she'd heard but not fully understood. Another common thing children do is recast Bible stories in the light of their limited point of view. Can you tell me something about Jesus?
He sits in his houses and makes rocks and cars and makes race cars.
Questions such as these reveal some remarkable insights. They also reveal some significant misunderstandings in children's ideas. Both insights and errors are to be expected in the early beginnings of a child's thinking about God. At least as important as the child's ideas are the child's attitudes about God and Jesus and Christian truth. And while his ideas will change as new facts are faced, his attitudes will tend to remain, influencing every facet of his life. Because the child is like this, how can he most effectively be taught Christian truth? Here are 5 basic guidelines that have proved helpful for many parents and teachers.
And you'll want to put these down.
First, build a warm, loving relationship with the child. The child who is surrounded with loving and understanding Christians will develop positive feelings about Jesus. Second, weave conversations about God into the middle of everyday activities. The child's day is full of first-hand experiences in which a simple comment or question can be an effective teaching approach. Third, avoid symbolism and limit abstract ideas. For example, songs like Climb, Climb Up Sunshine Mountain or Jesus Wants Me for a Sunbeam have little or no meaning to a young child. Focus on those simple, concrete experiences which the child is equipped to understand. Fourth, ask questions that encourage the child to talk. Limit the use of questions that end with yes or no or other one-word answers. Ask questions such as, what do you think? Or how would you feel? Or what did you like best? And fifth, use repetition. Do it again is the watchword of young children. Once is never enough. Also look for a variety of ways to present the same simple idea. Young children need new learning experiences provided in a setting of familiar activities. Children have always been drawn to Jesus. Something within the child responds easily to Jesus' loving warmth. Perhaps that something is what Jesus had in mind when he said, "For such is the kingdom of heaven." Perhaps the child really is very close to God's idea of what being human is all about.
Put the mice back on. How can we help young children learn better? I think that's the main thing that we're all interested in. That is the reason you're here. How many of you teach nursery or kindergarten children? Okay. How many of you teach beginners? All right. Most of you nursery, kindergarten. That's remarkable because usually at seminars there are few nursery teachers, very few. Somehow they don't usually make it. But I believe that we are learning more and more that they begin to learn so soon. So soon. You know, there's a remarkable incident in our own family, and my friend will recognize these children. My youngest daughter has 2 little boys, about a year apart. And the first child, they were so excited about their first child, and they'd been married about a year and a half, 2 years. And they were, just really excited, and finances were pretty good and all that. And was still in the first flush of the young bride and going to be a mother. The second little fella come along much before anybody planned for him or expected him or anything. I mean, 11 and a half months later, here he was. And he is just filled with self-confidence. I took him with me to St. Louis to give Mommy a break for 2 weeks, and he wasn't 2 years old. He was about 15 months. And I worked every day, so I put him with a babysitter. And it didn't even faze him. I mean, he just gets up in the morning, just ready to go. And last couple of weeks ago, his other grandpa, had been to St. Louis for a board meeting, and so the grandparents went by, and that grandmother took him home with her for a week. In fact, stayed away again 2 weeks. And my daughter said, oh, he just tucked his Snoopy dog under his arm, and I had sent him a new book, and he grabbed that book and said he walked right out of that door and didn't even say bye. So there are a lot of factors that we don't understand about what builds confidence and what destroys confidence. Now, I cannot, for the life of me, understand why that child thinks he's king of the walk, but he does. And he convinces everybody he meets that he is indeed number one. And the other little fella is a beautiful child, but he clings to Mommy. But that happened before the second child came along, so I don't have any ideas at all on that. Let's run right quickly through a few ideas. These are some old ideas, but they're still good. You can't love them if you aren't there. One preacher asked me once, said, Sister Wallace, how many Sundays should a teacher be allowed to be absent before you really, really deal with them? And I said, it startled me, And then he turned around and said, this one teacher had missed 13 Sundays. And I said, especially with young children. They really depend on the same faith. So you've got to be there. Now, a good teacher is a hunter, and you came here hunting new ideas. And you can find ideas so many, many places. You can find ideas in the public school classroom. You can find ideas in a library. Go to the library and check out books on early childhood education. James Hines is a real good writer. Catherine Reed is a good writer. James Dobson, Strong-Willed Child. That is a book everybody that's interested in children should read. Strong-Willed Child. Also, he wrote Dare to Discipline. Those 2 books are on the top 10 in Christian booksellers. James Dobson. And if by chance in this Houston area some church has his films, they are really worth it. Has anyone seen them? They are worth driving to see. Catherine Reed, I think she wrote The Nursery Child, R-E-A-D. She wrote back in the 50s, but she's just insane. It's secular. It's just early childhood education. And then James Hines is also secular. It's a study of how children grow and develop. And I've forgotten what James Hines has written, but H-Y-M-E-S. He used to be a professor at Maryland. And then, of course, we've got our own Center of Interest book here. I think I brought about a dozen copies of this. And then there are any number. When you read one, it'll refer you to another. If you want to read something else, sort of on the same idea of that cipher in the snow, there's a new book just published, and I've forgotten. It seems like Baker Bookhouse published that. And I don't remember the author at all, but the name of it is Lisa. It was a profoundly mentally disturbed child born into a home that it's a heartbreaking story. But So you're always looking for new ideas. I'll buy a whole book for one good idea. And along with that, we've got my daughter has got a new book out. Our very first one that we published in the publishing house of this nature is a pattern book. And she did all the artwork in it. And the companion book to this one will be out within 6 weeks if I can possibly rush it through production. This is just patterns. And this is one of the least expensive books on the market. This one's done for $1.75. And it's, a lot of the patterns in here are the ones that go with the word flame literature. But the book of patterns. The companion book to that would be the bulletin board book. Let me see, I have some Xerox copies of that. Well, if you come to the decorating class, I've got some for handouts there. But she's drawn over 100 bulletin board ideas. And you can buy the pattern book, and with this, and particularly if you've got an opaque projector, you ought to be in business. Even if you can't draw, well, she's giving you all the ideas. And then there are other ways you can do it. It's over 100. I don't believe there's any other bulletin board book on the market that has that many ideas in it. That will be out within 6 weeks. Just write the publishing house. In fact, if you want to put your name on the list, well, I'll take those back and let you know when it's published. And also the songs that he mentioned on symbolism, you know, avoid the songs that are abstract. Our own songs, written by our own Francis Muncie, are now available on cassette tape. You can buy the songbook. It's Songs for Young Children. We used to call it Songs for Pentecostal Children, and we took the Pentecostal off to appeal to the mass market, and Songs for Children, and they're available on cassette tape. I think it's a much easier way than the record. Okay, now the best idea that you can't find is not worth near as much as your old standby, or your not nearly so good idea, but you know where it is. So you gotta organize. You cannot be a good teacher if you don't organize, label things, file things, big objects that you can't put anywhere else. How about a garbage bag? Or big objects like for bulletin board ideas? Save those things. And there's no need to redraw those things every season. Save them, and they'll eventually your construction paper will fade, but not too soon. Then enthusiasm. Nothing great has ever been accomplished without enthusiasm. If you can't get excited, and there's nothing so exciting as to work with young children. My mother worked with the daycare center until she was 67, and she was still babysitting right shortly before she died at 73. I think that's what kept her so young. And of course, you've got to be here on time. If you have the most beautiful room, if you don't get here, you know, several minutes early, it's not going to be beautiful if you get there 10 minutes late. It'll be very unbeautiful. And you will have lost the whole ball game if you don't get there early. Now, you might look like this at the end of the session. But try not to look like that at the beginning. They like for their teacher to be pretty. Sister Haney has written a new book. Brother Haney brought me a copy. It's just off the press. It's called The Radiant Woman. And Sister Haney is a lovely, joyful person. She talks about joy a lot in that book. And I do think if I could be reincarnated and come back into this world, I wish I had a bigger dose of a sense of humor. That saves so many situations. You can just laugh. My mother-in-law had it, just her funny little laugh. And a lot of times there'd be kind of a tense situation develop, you know, but her funny little laugh, and it would just defuse the whole thing. And that can happen in your classroom. You say, well, it's not funny, Sister Wallace. Well, when your ears get red, that may amuse some of your students. You don't want, and you know what? You won't be depressed and sad if you work with young children. That's right. It gives you hope. And depression is a serious problem among us. Whatever you do, don't take stuff for it. There's nothing in the world worse than getting cooked on a bunch of Valium or something. Just pray through it. It's the joy of the Lord. And and don't depend on a bunch of medications to pull you out of the doldrums. And depression will absolutely destroy you. But young children don't have too much trouble. Now, of course, this boy Cyclone Snow had real depression problems, and they did not even recognize his problems. But a child's true nature is happy, unless he's just totally. And you gotta have this. The only way you do it is to get to bed at a decent hour Saturday night. And you have to be full of energy Sunday morning, stay up all night Saturday night, trying to do what you should have done much earlier. We'll go into this more in depth on the center of interest session tomorrow. But you've got your book centers, blocks. My whole house is a book center. There's books in every corner. Block center, puzzles, housekeeping, paint, worship. And you can't be slothful and be a good Sunday school teacher or good anything. There just isn't any room in this world for lazy people. We were talking earlier about the school problems and all. I said, I don't think they ought to have compulsory education. They didn't in Mississippi. I think they ought to make it a privilege to go to school. If you don't want to study, then okay, you ought to find a CCC camp or something. Study or go to work. I believe it. I think we'd have a lot less. And above all, concern. If you don't remember anything else, go home and find out who the Cliff Evans is in your class. Now, we have some typical case histories here. Let's see if I can locate those now. Okay, let's take these. Well, let's talk just a few minutes about it. Kind of share them. I've got stuff printed for y'all and for Jamaica. So I thought, well, this is plain for Texas, but I missed it this. Pass them on down. Pass these on back. And then share them all distributed. See, I might need one. Okay. Typical situations regarding children. Why don't you turn around and talk in little groups of about 4 or 5. And this group up here takes case number 1. And you appoint yourself a spokesperson. All right? And how about this row here, or you better divide in the middle so you turn around and kind of talk. Y'all take case number 2, and you folks take case number 3. Have y'all got a paper back here? Y'all take 4, these 2 rows from about middle. Turn around and talk to each other. Y'all can join that group. And then y'all down there take 5. Then on the back side, are y'all in? Okay, y'all, about 6 of you right in here, turn around and take 6 on the back side. And y'all have that. Have you got a single one? You don't have anything? Anybody got an extra sheet? Anybody got an extra sheet? Okay, okay. How about you folks taking 8 back in here, this little group right here? And how about y'all? Could y'all take 9 over there? And appoint yourself as the spokesperson. We'll allow about 5 minutes. Okay, over here. Why don't you group in the very back take 1? Y'all don't have any problems to say? On the end papers that left over, I think you. Here's a big bitty chair if you want to sit in it. All right, we don't have many minutes left, so let's try to over here a little. All right, how about over here, group number 1? Okay? Go ahead and give us a report. What do you think about the busy Sunday morning? Pamela brought for the first time developmental with children her own age. And so what did your group decide to do?
Well, we chose basically D. Pamela invites your mother to sit near an activity center until Pamela gets involved and then quietly slip out. And we felt this because since she hadn't, we felt it would be better for the mother and for the child since it's been a very insecure situation.
Exactly. These people that are so harsh, no mother steps in my department. I don't buy that at all. And I'll tell you another thing. When a child comes to your church, an older child brings the younger one, don't let the younger child go to the class with the older child. Send the older child to the younger class. Because no way the older child's going to stay down in that young class. As soon as he can get out, he's going to leave. But if you send the young one with the old one, you may have you still have to cut the apron string someday. So that's the way to handle that. Okay, number 2, who had that? Y'all had that? Okay. Yes.
We decided that we liked C, but we wanted to add a little bit to it, put a few blocks near Pamela, but help her to play with and get her involved in building something.
Oh, I like that. I like that. You were creative. You added a little bit more to it. That's beautiful. A good teacher can always adapt an idea. Now, if you notice, and when I teach other teachers how to teach, I don't ever say, you've got to paint this thing that color. I mean, it's your room. You've got to adapt the ideas to your situation. I really appreciate you adding to that.
What did she add to that? Helping her get started building something, help her work with her.
Build 2 or 3 blocks for her. You can even say that, what would you like to do? Is this a church? Is this your church? Or is this the highway? Or whatever they want to. All right, number 3 over here. If you want to stand, I believe this is too large.
We all read the question. 3-year-old Jeffrey has acquired almost half the Play-Doh, and the other children do not object to the Greek for more. Okay, we decided that it would be better for him to learn how to share with the children, but to present it in a positive, like not really be negative, don't take this Play-Doh, but try to, just in a nice way, say, maybe Jesus would like you to share with the other children. Try to do it and share with them. Don't, put it across in a negative way.
Well, I like the idea you're trying to put it across positively. But why do you ask Jesus to do what you're not willing to do for yourself?
Well, no, what I'm saying is that Jesus likes to share.
Well, that's a Christian concept, right. But it's like, don't use Jesus as a policeman. See what I'm saying? Rarely any of us now threaten our children, if you don't behave, I'm going to call the police. But in a subtle way, we almost do that with Jesus. You're in charge, you're an adult. You say, I think it would be nice if you would share this Play-Doh. Because you are there. And he can connect to you where Jesus is not there. And it might be a little hard. You represent Jesus. So you take charge of that classroom. You're in charge. Okay, is that our time? Have we got any more time at all? I've got several more things to share with you. Again, go kind of easy on these. This is stuff I didn't cover. Just kind of get them back. And if you're in the same church, why share? All right, in the group, is it time to, they're waiting on you?
They're waiting on us to come in.
Okay. All right. Goodbye. God bless. I'm sorry.